Professor Sripathi, can you hear us?
Yes, yes, of course, I can hear you,
All
Professor.
right.
How are you after a long time?
We are fine, Prof. Nice to have you around.
Yes, yes,
All
same
right.
here.
Today
And
we
how
have
are you,
only 40
Brian?
minutes. Yeah, we have strictly 40 minutes for this session, and I think we have gone into it 5 minutes. And we could start off this formally. I'll just introduce, then we will proceed. And our sessions will proceed by way of presentation by yourself or any other person, and thereafter we shall be having discourse discussions relating to that particular topic. Okay, so I'll start off.
Yeah.
Viewers, wherever you are, we welcome you to this discussion, the first one of its own kind this year, 2021. We thank you for those who supported the program last year and welcome the new ones who are joining us this year to be able to share in what the professors are able to present to you this year. Today's topic, I am actually Professor Dr. Milton War. I'm with Professor Sripathi Dwarakanath, who is a specialist in international law. We are also with Brian Kutler Ramampane, also an international law researcher. All right, today's topic is Rohingya. We are going to examine the legal implications of what is transpiring between Rohingya Muslims who have been subject of discussion world over, and in the media has covered that very widely. Needless to mention more about it. So we welcome you. As professors, we are going to examine the legal aspects of this particular mayhem. And with us here, as I said, we have Professor Sripathi. We shall welcome Professor Sripathi to be able to make his presentation. Thereafter, we shall proceed to have a discourse based on that presentation. Thank you very much, viewers, and I take this opportunity to hand over the presentation time to Professor Sripathi. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you so much, Professor Milton. And I would first of all like to know how much time do you have, and what is the duration of the whole session? Because you said it is about 40 minutes? Or?
Yes, our presentation will give you up to 15 minutes the way we used to have.
Okay.
So then it allows the time for presentation, for discourse.
Anyway, I'll wind up before 15 minutes. And I, first of all, welcome the two experts on the panel here. One is Professor Dr. Milton. And again, we have Brian Ramapane, who is a research scholar in the field of international criminal law. And I also wish, okay, Dr. Marota has just arrived on the screen. So, Dr. Marota.
Hi, Professor. Hi.
A very happy and prosperous new year.
Same to you. Nice haircut, man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it is not a haircut. I just shaved my head.
It's a reset.
And I also wish all the viewers, wherever you are, a very happy and prosperous new year, 2021. Hopefully, the COVID will leave us in this year, and we will all be able to, move around freely without masks on our faces, and freely meet people whom we really love, and with whom we have good relations. So I just hope for that. And now the very theme of today's session, that is the Rohingya crisis, legal aspects, and the ICC. Rohingyas are a Muslim community who have been in Myanmar. Earlier it was Burma. Now the name has changed to Myanmar, where hundreds of thousands have fled to neighboring Bangladesh. Like Bangladesh, India is also a neighbor to Myanmar. And when they migrated, not migrated, but in fact fled because of the oppressive regime of the military junta in Myanmar, where a lot of atrocities were committed against the Rohingya Muslim women and children, a lot of murders, rapes, torture, all kinds of crimes have been committed against the Rohingyas military regime in Myanmar. And in order to save their lives, they had to flee. So they went to the neighboring country, Bangladesh. And the Rohingyas have been living on the territory of Bangladesh for a very long time, particularly in one pocket of Myanmar, which is known as the Rakhine State. Now, the government of Myanmar, despite the uh, despite the living of the Rohingya Muslims on its territory for such a long time, has not granted the status of citizenship to the Rohingyas. In fact, they were treated as third-rate people, not even citizens, by the government of Myanmar. Now, it is because of this threat to the lives and families of the Rohingyas, they fled from Myanmar, and the Security Council also could not take any action against Myanmar because now coming to the uh, liability of the state of Myanmar for whatever atrocities that were committed by the head of state of Myanmar. First of all, the United Nations has in fact has done a lot for the protection of refugees all over the world. The UN has established the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, and this High Commission for Refugees has the primary responsibility of providing protection to refugees all over the world. And has been doing its best to protect the vulnerable groups, particularly the refugees. And the estimates tell us that there are about 8.5 million people who have been displaced from their homes in their own country, but still remain inside the country as second-rate citizens. According to the UN, by the end of the year 2011, there were 47.5 million individuals who are as refugees, they are displaced persons and also asylum seekers. Now, if we see Article 14 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, clearly states that every person has a right to seek asylum in other countries. Now, no doubt this is a very good right that has been recognized by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But the problem is the right cannot be effective if no obligation is imposed upon the states to grant asylum. While the right is there, the declaration does not impose an obligation upon the states to grant asylum. So there's no point in just having a right when there is no obligation being imposed upon the states. Apart from that, now Afghanistan is the largest producer of refugees, that is 2.7 million, followed by Iraq, Somalia, Sudan, and Congo. Now, since we are talking about Rohingya refugees, it is most important for us as to know what a refugee is. Who is a refugee? A refugee is a person who is forced to leave his native country because of fear resulting from oppression and persecution in the country of origin. So, if these people are persecuted, it could be a few individuals, it could be a community who are persecuted, government of that country, and they are forced to flee to save their lives. Now, every country that is a party to the Refugee Convention, in fact, under the framework of the United Nations, convention has been signed in the year 1951, known as the Convention on the International Status of Refugees. Now, every state which is a party to this convention has an obligation to provide refugee status to people who come seeking for refugee status. And there is also an obligation on the part of the states which are parties to the convention not to send back persons or individuals from the frontiers itself. They should allow the persons to come into the territory. They should be sent to the immigration authorities or authorities concerned with granting refugee status. And the authorities must, in fact, uh, interrogate or rather interview the persons, trying to find out the real reason as to why they left their own country and has come to this country seeking refugee status. Now, if the persons are able to give valid reasons and if the authorities concerned are convinced that there is definitely a clear danger to the lives of people in their own country, then refugee status is granted. And in cases where if a country is not in a position to grant refugee status to persons, then they have to repatriate these refugees to some other, but they cannot send back these people back to their own country because that is against the principles of uh, fundamental principles of international law, particularly the Refugee Convention 1951. Now, once refugee status is granted to these people, the government concerned has to keep them under 24 into 7 surveillance because uh, there is an obligation on the part of the government granting refugee status to ensure that these refugees do not indulge in any kind of criminal activities on the territory of that state. Because there is a possibility of even terrorists entering a country in the garb of being refugees, and then they start their terrorist activities in the territory of this country. So that is why there must be a surveillance. Apart from that, a camp must be established for the refugees, and proper food and clothing must be provided. And most importantly, protection must be provided to the refugees from the locals because there are instances in many countries where refugees were ill treated by the locals of that country, where the locals have raped the woman, murdered the woman, they beat up the men badly, and even the children were taken away and used as domestic helps in their homes. These instances we have seen in the newspapers and then in certain documentaries on refugee law, where I attended a few courses and they had shown me videos of what was happening to the refugees in certain countries. So this is something that the governments must prevent and stop. And the Rohingyas being refugees in Bangladesh, uh, there is an obligation on the part of Bangladesh to provide protection to the Rohingyas. But however, Bangladesh itself being a very backward country, a developing country, it becomes difficult for the economy of the Bangladesh to uh, take care of so many uh, lakhs of refugees when they come into the country. This has happened to India also in the year 1971, prior to the Indo-Pak War. Because of the uh, military regime of Yahya Khan, the oppressive military regime of General Yahya Khan in East Pakistan. lot of refugees, Bangla refugees, in thousands and thousands had entered Indian territory illegally. Now, India is not a party to the 1951 Refugee Convention. Despite that, India had accommodated these refugees and had taken care of them. Even today, India still helps those people who come to it seeking help or seeking refugee status, though India has no obligation under the 1951 convention, but still, off the record, it helps. Now, coming to the international aspects of providing protection to the Rohingyas. First of all, let us consider the Human Rights Council, which was established by the United Nations. Now, this Human Rights Council is an intergovernmental body of 47 states, in the sense the governments of these 47 states have signed an agreement, and on the basis of the agreement, the Human Rights Council has been established. Now, this Human Rights Council has established an evidence gathering mechanism, which is known as the Independent Investigation Mechanism for Myanmar, IIMM. The main purpose of this mechanism is to prepare case files to facilitate and expedite fair and independent criminal proceedings for any future criminal prosecution which may take place either in a national court or an international court. So the Human Rights Council plays a very important role, in the sense either for International Court of Justice or the International Criminal Court, evidence is important, because to attach liability to a person for the crimes committed by him, evidence is the most important thing. And this evidence is provided by this Human Rights Council. And the United Nations Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, has named Nicholas Comjian of the United States as the head of this evidence collecting mechanism. So this is one development in the international sphere uh, for the protection of Rohingya Muslims. Then, of course, we have the ICC, which is the main uh, aspect of today's theme, the how ICC would proceed in Myanmar. Now, we have seen in the past through all the discourses that the ICC does not have jurisdiction or cannot exercise jurisdiction against states which are not parties to the Rome Statute. And Myanmar is also not a party to the Rome Statute. And the ICC cannot proceed against Myanmar. But the ICC has decided to proceed against Myanmar. In fact, the prosecutor of ICC, Fatou Bensouda, has requested the pretrial chamber to grant authorization so that uh, the prosecutor can start an investigation into the alleged crimes that have been committed by the uh, military officers in Myanmar against the Rohingya Muslims. And the question is, how does the ICC exercise jurisdiction over Myanmar? Now, one element has been identified by the ICC prosecutor, that is the crime of deportation. Crime of deportation is definitely one of the crimes which is part of the Rome Statute. So thousands and thousands of Rohingya Muslims have been deported from Myanmar to Bangladesh. So this is a kind of a what nexus. The starting point is Myanmar and the end is Bangladesh. So the element of crime which started in Myanmar, the deportation, ended in Bangladesh. And Bangladesh being a party to the Rome Statute, the ICC decided to proceed against Myanmar. And the BTC 3 has authorized the prosecutor to start an investigation into the atrocities that have been committed against the Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar. Now, one ask a question as to why the Security Council could not uh, make a referendum, because in the case of all those states which are not parties to the Rome Statute, but if they are members of the United Nations organization, the Security Council can always make a referral to the ICC to start an investigation against that state. But in this case, the Security Council has been unable to make a referral because of the veto that has been exercised by China and Russia, who are both non-parties of the Rome Statute. And the reason they give us uh, such referrals are not proper, and it is of serious concern when referrals allow the ICC to proceed against non-parties. So that is why they consistently opposed every referral that has been made by the Security Council against non-state parties, particularly these two countries, China and Russia. So that is one reason why a referral could not be made by the United Nations Security Council. But however, uh, coming to the other uh, international tribunal, apart from the ICC, we have the International Court of Justice. Now, the states are, now ICC has its limitations, so also the ICJ. But if ICC and ICJ can both put pressure on the government of Myanmar, ICC is not able to exert pressure on the government of Myanmar because Myanmar is a non-state party. But it is a party, I mean, it is a member of the United Nations organization, and by virtue of being a member of the UN, it is automatically, in other words, you say ipso facto, a member of the statute of the International Court of Justice. So the court can bring Myanmar before it to provide justice. And this is Article 9 of the Genocide Convention, to which Myanmar is a party. Myanmar has signed the Genocide Convention. So Article 9 of the Genocide Convention empowers the International Court of Justice to proceed against states who are guilty of committing the crime of genocide. So if any other country which has accepted or which has conferred jurisdiction upon the court, International Court of Justice under Article 9, can proceed against Myanmar before the International Court of Justice. Examples are Bangladesh is a member of the Genocide Convention. Canada is a member of the Genocide Convention, and Holland is also a member of the Genocide Convention. So any of the three countries can file a case before the International Court of Justice against Myanmar, requesting the court to proceed against Myanmar. And in fact, Canada has been doing a lot, has been putting a lot of pressure on the International Court of Justice to proceed against Myanmar. And hopefully something may come out of it, because the Rohingyas are suffering a lot, and we simply cannot sit back and watch those people suffer. Despite having relevant mechanisms of justice in the international community, yet the whole world is sitting back and then watching all these atrocities that are taking place around them. Now, coming to India's nexus with Rohingyas, while some groups of Rohingyas have fled to Bangladesh. Another group has come to India seeking refugee status. But the Indian government has refused to grant refugee status to the Rohingyas. And in fact, the case has reached the Supreme Court of India, where the judges have asked for an explanation from the government of India as to why the government of India is not providing refugee status to the Rohingyas. The government of India has been very clear in the sense in the past, Rohingyas have been guilty of committing terrorist activities within the country of India. And therefore, on the grounds of national security, which is of serious concern for the government of India, the government of India has refused to grant refugee status to Rohingyas. But despite all this, Rohingya Muslims are spread all over the country in India. In certain pockets, they remain, though they uh, uh, stay on the territory of India is illegal, but still they continue to remain. Uh, but probably very soon in the near future, the government of India may take some kind of measure, some kind of steps to either provide them refugee status or to send them to their own country. There, in fact, China, Bangladesh, and Myanmar have signed an agreement for repatriation of the Rohingya refugees to Myanmar, to send them back to Myanmar. But the UN Secretary General has clearly said that this is not proper because this is totally against fundamental principles of international law and the Refugee Convention, and also against the principle of non-refoulement. That is, if a state is not able to provide refugee status to certain people, it has to send them to some other country, but not back to their own country where their lives are at danger. Is sent back. So this agreement was signed despite pressure from the UN, despite pressure from the ICC. This particular development has taken place. So only time will tell us as to what can happen to the Rohingyas in the near future. Thank you
Thank you
for
very much,
this
Professor.
opportunity.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. We have only a few minutes left. Thank you for that comprehensive presentation. And Dr. Marota, we welcome you. I think we are left with only 10 minutes to wind up. So for now, can we have some input in terms of what has been presented, particularly in connection with the nature of crimes that revolve around this particular mayhem, the crimes under the statutes of, under the International Criminal Court Statute, the Rome Statute. We could also quickly look into the issue of the Security Council of the United Nations. And let's have some contribution. Anybody ready to contribute to that? I have a warning that's only 10 minutes left, perhaps only 9, and we'll be offline. Yes, proceed, Dr.
Yes, well, thank you very much. It was an excellent by Professor Tripathi. He condensed all what's happening in with this exodus of the Rohingyas. What I want to add is that we need to see what have done in the past or in other countries or in other regions related to this kind of crimes of deportation. For example, here in Latin America, we have a it's not a similar case related to, well, we don't know because we have to do the investigations because the same kind of exodus have happened to in Venezuela. In Venezuela, we have, I don't know, here in Peru, like 2 million Venezuelans people living here in Peru, and there are others millions living between Colombia, Ecuador, Chile, even Argentina. And they have done this exodus from their country, also in Brazil, going to So, I mean, there are a lot of resolutions done by the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights related to these kind of crimes, and also evoking the international treaties of genocide, because it said when you there have been done interviews by NGOs here from this group of persons that derive that they have been a lot of atrocity, crime of atrocities done to them. So we need to see that, and also I agree with Professor Chipati. The world is sitting and is only watching watching what is going on with the Rohingya, and they are not doing nothing. So I think that the first reaction done by the asking the Patriotic Chamber to start investigation, even though it was not part of their jurisdiction of the ICC. I think that it was a very savant move in doing justice and understanding the meaning of international criminal justice, that only one step further in any kind of um, of international crimes, and we need to think out the box because what we are going to face from now on, we are going to be challenged in the international arena. I don't know what is going on right now with the pandemic of COVID-19. What is going to happen with, I mean, I always have these crazy thinkings about it's going to be like, you know, some countries, in some countries here in Latin America, that they are trying to file some indictments against their rulers and former government administrations of genocide, because for example, we have like 58,000 people die of COVID-19 from the last administration, under the last administration. They have done nothing, and the new government, they have I don't know, to make the contracts and buy the vaccination that they can find in the market, because now it's closed. You know, you have to wait until 2022. So there are going to appear some kind of international crime, that there are going to appear international criminal actions that are not the way we studied when we were students at the law school, trying to understand what is an international criminal crime.
Okay,
So
not to interrupt,
yes,
we are left with 4 minutes, 35 minutes.
yes. So
Yeah.
the idea is that we need to challenge and we need to support the ICC through papers. I don't know, to some books, what they're doing, for example, with the Rohingya. I mean, there was a very bold and savant action to do. I think the next head of the ICC and the prosecutors that are working there, they need to have the kind of guide. I mean, we need to do something, and we cannot stay at home and watching and eating popcorn, what happening with our neighbors, and trying to scoot out ourselves, saying that we have no jurisdiction, we cannot do nothing. We need to go one step ahead, and also trying to change a little bit and do some kind of research related to international jurisdiction right now under the ICC. Thank you for everyone.
Thank you very much, Doctor. That was very brief and
Milton.
Mr. Brian, do you have anything to add on? We are left with 3 minutes now.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to add a historical perspective of why there is clash in the state. It should be noted that in 1982, the state passed a Citizenship Act that excluded the Rohingya state or the Rohingya tribe as part of the citizens of the country. That's why we see the clash that we are currently discussing today. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for your contribution. I would want us to, in the remaining 2 minutes, anybody who could talk on the nature of the crimes that are being suspected to have been committed. As the professor had indicated, actually, the International Criminal Court has authorized investigations to proceed. What sort of crimes are we looking at as a possibility of having the basis of investigation and subsequent prosecution within this mayhem? Anyone with a contribution? Okay, we might be looking at crimes against humanity based on the report that was made by the United Nations Human Rights Commission. There are crimes against humanity, specifically relating to what the security forces carried out within Rakhine state on the Rohingya people. And there could be, oh, sorry, I think we are out of time. I want to thank you all, it's just less than a minute left. I want to thank you all our viewers for being able to be with us today, and thank you the panelists. Sorry for that short time. I think next time we'll be able to do it within the principles.
This is the first time from the time the discourse started that it has taught abbreviated form.
Yeah. It will train us to be more precise. Unfortunately, it has to come to an end. Thank you very much. We've been able to,
Yes.
within such a time, you've been able to put in great things. Brian, you've done great. And Prof, thank you so much. Thank you, our viewers.
Welcome.
And we hope to see you again shortly when we'll be able to.
Yes.
Yes.
Otherwise, that is all for today. And we wish you well. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend. Thank you. See you next time.
Yes.
Bye, professors. Bye, Brian.